Welcome to Smokin Bulls, the podcast about business, money, and lifestyle. I'm Tyler.
I'm Dave.
Let's get into it. Well, welcome everybody to Smokin Bulls. Today we're going to be chatting about, we're going to be chatting with Rob Anton, a gentleman from Next Edge Capital. I'm not going to chat so much about Next Edge Capital right now. We're going to chat with him more about what he's interested in doing outside of his business. So Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We chatted with you, I guess, before this conversation about your love of sports, that you're a sports, I guess if you wanted to call it a fanatic, you enjoy almost everyone that's under the sun. And you've also shared with us a little bit about some of the travel that you've done. So, that I don't know if that's considered a lifestyle, but you've had some really cool sports experiences. Maybe you can, I guess, share with us your love of sports and where you've been, some of the places you've seen.
Yeah, for sure. From a very young age, I've enjoyed playing sports. Played a lot of them. I still play a lot of them today. Some of the typical Canadian sports like hockey and golf. Played high school football. Played tennis. Mountain biking, hiking. Beach volleyball. You name it. I'm still pretty much active in almost all of them, other than maybe football. In addition to playing sports my whole life and continuing to be passionate about it, I watch a lot of them. When I can, watching live sports is excellent. I have traveled a lot, in my life, for both business as well as pleasure. And, if there's exciting sporting events in those locales that I'm traveling to, sometimes I'll take advantage of being able to see that. So you want me to give you some examples of some of the things that I have seen live?
That would be great. That'd be great. Yeah. I'd be curious where you've been and what you've seen.
And what your favorite one was. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, some exciting ventures that I've been on. I did go to a Super Bowl. I've only been to one, but I was at the Super Bowl in Miami. Not the previous one that just happened, but the one before that. That was quite an experience. It wasn't cheap, but it was a great experience. Yeah. A lot of fun. I think we were there for 3 days before and the day after before we went home. But that was really fun. It was the one where. It was the one where The Who played at the halftime show.
Okay, so it wasn't. I can't remember which one of the Janet Jackson slip up.
No, I didn't see that controversial one. I've over the last 20 plus years, I've been to London, England, probably 25, 30 times. A lot of it for work. Have brought my family there as well on some of those trips. And, as part of those trips, we adopted some of the culture there, which is going to, the football match, or, as we know, it's soccer. So I have seen a handful of games, in stadiums like Emirates Stadium, where Arsenal, plays out of, and as well as Tottenham Hotspurs, plays out of their stadium. So had a hand, So I think 4 or 5, English Premier matches. So that was kind of cool. A big sport over in the UK as well is rugby. So I did get a chance to see a few professional rugby matches in addition to an international match. So that was kind of interesting. That was pretty cool getting into that culture. Regarding more traditional sports, gosh, I've seen, Maple Leaf fans. So, I know you guys probably hate me, but it's, I have, although my boyhood idol is Wayne Gretzky, who is an Oiler, so it's not so bad. But, I've seen hockey games kind of all over the place as well. Detroit, Buffalo, Toronto, Florida, Chicago, which is kind of cool. Seen basketball games, Raptors fans, so seen basketball game in Toronto, but as well seen them in Detroit. Baseball games, have part of the season tickets for the Blue Jays, so been a fan there for a long time. Also seen baseball games, professional games where Detroit, Cubs, I've seen the Cubs many times in Chicago. Seen the game in San Diego, saw the Padres play in San Diego. Soccer games, in addition to the English Premier ones, obviously I watched the TFC play. Seen the Canadian women's national team play many times. My daughter's a huge fan of them, and great people and great role models for society there. So that gives you, a flavor of some of the things I've seen. Anyways, I'm running out of ideas. Oh, I guess I took tennis matches. I've been to professional tennis matches as well. So it's now that I'm actually listing all these things off, I'm wondering when I actually get a chance to work. But
yeah, that's a ton of places.
I guess I'm old, so there's been a lot of opportunity to go to these matches.
Who would you say out of all these stadiums, which is the nicest or most organized, which provided the best experience? I guess it doesn't have to be, any particular sport, but who did it right out of all these places you've been? Which one stands out?
My favorite sporting event to go to, and believe it or not, it's maybe, the least exciting sport to watch per se, but as far as an experience, before the game, during the game, after the game, going to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field is truly an experience. Sometimes I wonder even if I need to go to the game just because of the fun you can have kind of before the game and hitting Wrigleyville and all the places around it after. But it's truly a great experience. The fans are great. A lot of their games, historically have happened in afternoons. I've been to many Friday afternoon games at Wrigley Field, and going out for a few drinks or pre-tailgate kind of parties before the game, going to the game. Great stadium, a lot of history there, and then even in the outfield where they have bleachers on roofs across the street from the stadium and stuff like that. It's just a lot of great experience. And then going after the game to places like Cubby Bears across the street where after as soon as the last out hits, the live band starts playing on the stage, and you're with a whole bunch of people whereby you're in there at 4:00 and you would think it's like midnight at the most happening kind of fun bar in town. So it's a great experience all around. So
sounds cool. It doesn't sound like it's something where you need to know a heck of a lot about baseball. It just sounds like a cool spot to be.
That is true.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
And what about your travels for playing sports? Not just necessarily where's the best destination you've gone and what sport were you playing?
Most of my sports that I've played have all happened kind of within North America, so it hasn't been too exciting there. It was most of my exciting sport travel has been mostly on the personal level and watching other people play it.
So it sounds like you like just about every sport under the sun. Is there any you don't like or that you're not good at?
Can't really think of any. I'm pretty open to some. I maybe don't consider bowling a sport, so no offense to the bowlers out there, but it's but outside of that, I'm pretty open to most. So
yeah. What about darts?
I actually have a dartboard in my basement.
There you go.
I'm not sure about the sport categorization, but over a beer with some friends, I'll play darts for sure.
Yeah, if you can hold a beer and do your sport, I think that's where you start to lose the definition of sport.
Yeah, a good friend of mine talked about the darts there, and he was up late one night and caught watching darts, and this really portly guy gets up there and he's taking a big swig out of his beer and then a big puff out of his smoke, and 180, and the announcer's like, what an athlete, it's just couldn't get that out of his head for days. That's all he talked about was just this excited announcer, what an athlete, like shooting his 180 after a swig of beer and maybe even the smoke was still in his mouth. This was a while ago, so who knows? Yeah,
they still do something while they're drinking beer, right?
That's right. It's a sport. There's a sport for everyone, I guess, in the realm of things. So
that's right.
When you're traveling, now obviously you said you touched some of these, mixed them in with work. I think a lot of people would look at like seeing events around the world as just a really expensive thing. What's the myth around that? What's the way to really do it and not cost yourself a small fortune?
Yeah. So outside of my Super Bowl experience, which, we ended up buying scalper tickets and, sitting in reasonable seats. It was very, very, very expensive. But, everything else that we've actually seen have not been that costly whatsoever. I've grown up, my whole life within, say, an hour of Toronto. So most of my sporting events, locally, from the professional side has been seeing Toronto teams. Toronto's a very expensive place to watch, the Toronto Maple Leafs or Toronto Raptors play a game, relative to anywhere in the world. So, you can see English Premier Soccer matches. You can go to professional tennis matches. You can go to, European rugby matches, all for probably cheaper than the cost of a Leaf game. So it's fairly reasonable, actually. It's not that bad. Nice. Obviously, if you're going there just for the event and you add the price of the flight and the hotel, maybe that adds up. But outside of that, if you're there anyways, I'd encourage everyone to absorb the culture and take in some of their local sports. It can be quite entertaining. So.
For sure.
Some of the fun, actually, I will add one thing to your previous question, with regards to best sporting experience, because I am missing maybe one. Before an English Premier match, it's some of the fun actually is in the, say, 2 hours before the match actually starts and hitting some of the local pubs, around the stadium. So I was actually there maybe 10 years ago with a handful of clients, and one of my clients actually made a YouTube video about our day going to see an Arsenal match, and called Five Hosers Become Gunners. So it's actually on YouTube if you want to look at it, but it's much of the footages of all the fun we had prior to the actual game. With actually fans from both sides, Manchester City, which was, the away team coming into town. All their fans were actually within, the same group of fans from Arsenal at a bar right across the street. Everyone chanting their team songs and everything like that, and everyone very cordial and having a lot of fun. So, we ended up getting adopted by some diehard Man City fans and teaching us the ropes and learning their team songs. So I should add that one to the mix as far as a unique experience.
Yeah, awesome. It's interesting that you point out that it was cordial and everything was good, because my perspective of a soccer match, and I've never been to Europe or been to a soccer match like that, you always hear and have heard of the riots that have broken out, and you wonder how tense those matches are, between fans. Doesn't sound like there's this animosity in there where you guys don't get along. It's probably like
I didn't witness it, but I heard stories from decades prior about separate entrances for the visitors and fences lining their part of where they're visiting and stuff. But everything I've seen has been very cordial, very friendly, and a great experience. So.
Okay, well, that's, thank you very much, Rob, for sharing with us some of the sporting events that you've traveled to and seen. It sounds like you're a worldly sports nut, so that's pretty cool. Some neat stories, and thanks for sharing them with us.
For sure.
But I think we're pretty much wrapped up. Thanks again for joining us on Smokin Bulls, Rob.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Smokin Bulls, the podcast about business, money, and lifestyle. If you want to learn more about us, find us at smokinbulls.com or follow us on our social media pages.